donations go towards all of the research we do here. So it goes towards equipment such as the cameras. It does go towards, for instance, the tours, the fuel for the tours, some time. We can't charge anything that we do with Timu or Heidi towards the Montrose funds, so it helps cover that, covering their cages. For instance, this year we're going to need to replace all their netting, which is probably going to cost about $5,000. So it all goes towards the Eagle project. The largest owls we have out here are the barn or the short-eared. I'm not sure which are larger. And osprey and eagles don't really get along. The eagles actually tend to steal the osprey's fish because the osprey are better fishermen. So the eagles will watch the osprey catch something and then chase them. And we do have red-tailed hawks on Catalina. We also have American kestrels, peregrine falcons, merlin, sharp-shinned hawks, and probably a couple other northern harriers. And Heidi's eggs are all infertile because she has nobody to mate with. So we generally drain them and give them to like the Western Foundation. Somebody would use them for display. Rogue eagles. That's what people call eagles that come into a nest and wreak havoc. So we've had that mostly on Santa Cruz Island, and I think it's because we've had a skewed sex ratio, so we have more females than males, and the females are probably looking for mates and having battles between themselves over mates. The one that took the 2 chicks out of the Pelican Harbor nest, we really don't know who that was or why it would be doing something like that. I don't think it was seeing them as food, and it was too young to breed. So we really have no idea why that bird did what it did. And I think most birds will lay eggs even with no mate. Just like chickens don't necessarily need to have a mate. And I'll watch the West End nest this evening, and when they get up I'll try to zoom in the camera on it. But like I said, that the pipping, you're most likely not going to see it until the last hour before the egg hatches, because usually it just sort of pushes up the eggshell a little bit. And about the intervening, it would, like I said before, it all depends on the age of the chicks. If they were less than maybe 3 or 4 weeks old, we could potentially go in and try to stick them into another nest if one was available. But after that, I think at least here a single adult could feed the chicks. The egg tooth just sort of dries up and falls off. It's just a protuberance on the top of the beak. And how it works is, hatching is actually caused by oxygen deprivation, or the buildup of CO2, so it causes the neck muscles to spasm, so that they're actually sort of hitting the eggshell with their neck being spasmed, and that's where the egg tooth hits. The worst aspect of my job? Probably when you put a lot of work into a chick and then it dies for a stupid reason. Like getting hit by a car. We've had a few hit by vehicles on the mainland, or getting fouled up in the fishing line. Things that are, or hitting power lines, getting electrocuted. If they die from something natural, that's one thing, but if they die from human causes, that's entirely different. The Santa Cruz Island gets a bit more rain than Catalina. I think they actually get almost twice as much. So there's more in the way of forests up there, oak forests, pine forests, some different vegetation, but we all have the saw-whet owls and frogs, like the ones that you hear on the sausage can at night. They occur on a variety of the islands. For Catalina, our prey delivery studies showed about 85 to 90% of what's brought to the nest is fish. Birds are second, and then miscellaneous is the third, things that we just couldn't identify, which could be ground squirrels, pieces of meat off of marine mammals washed up on the beach, etc. Santa Cruz, I think they get a little bit more in the terms of seabirds because there are a lot more seabirds up on the northern islands. The younger birds probably feed more on marine mammals, especially in the fall when they travel over to Santa Rosa Island, where there's a lot of sea mammals, elephant seals and sea lions breeding out there. Wind turbines, it's all in the placement. Then you also got to think about, if you're replacing oil with wind, an oil spill kills thousands of birds and other animals. But I think the wind turbines, if they're located properly, they can have a minimal threat. The biggest threat is probably to the golden eagles because the wind turbines are interior California, whereas bald eagles tend to be around water and the ocean in California. We have found shark remains last year, I think it was, in the Two Harbors nest. So a lot of what the birds get is probably pulled up by fishermen and thrown back and is either dead or injured. So whenever we see a fishing boat, we generally check the cliffs around them to see if we can find any eagles that are waiting for food to be thrown out. I don't think there's anything wrong with Ray's eye. I think it's just an age thing because we're seeing the same sort of look on the birds at Seal Rocks as well. So it may just be an age thing, and we've never really gotten such a good look at her in the past. And bald eagles can live over 35 years in the wild and over 40 in captivity, but the average is probably closer to 10 to 15. The first 2 years are the most difficult, so there's probably a 40 to 50% mortality during the first 2 years, and then once they're older and set up a territory, there's a very high survival rate. The golden eagles, we see them occasionally, but I think those are just young ones that come over from the mainland for a day or a week. With the pigs gone from Santa Cruz and the deer and the elk gone from Santa Rosa, there's not going to be much that'll actually keep the golden eagles out on the islands. And we do get a lot of the whippoorwills, especially in the winter, it seems. They come through, and when we drive home at night, we can kick up 10 to 20 of them off the roads. They just seem to like to sit there on the roads. I really haven't looked at the sex ratio, but it should be close to 50-50. And I don't tend to get too attached to the eagles because I know that we've had a lot of pair changes, a lot of birds die. So I really haven't gotten attached to any particular eagle or pair. The adults will probably let their juvies return, until the next breeding season, or maybe outside of a breeding season. But if they come around while there's eggs or chicks, they're going to get chased off. Bald eagles would not tend to hunt lambs and larger mammals. I think a lot of the confusion comes with them feeding on a lamb versus killing it. There's a lot of natural death, and when somebody sees a bald eagle feeding on a lamb out in the field, they assume the bald eagle killed it, but their primary source of food is scavenging. And for large mammals, they can't really carry more than about 5 pounds with them. And I've seen videos of golden eagles taking down small deer or goats, but I've not seen any of these bald eagle videos. We really haven't analyzed the data on pair formation. Generally, they do mate for the life of one of the birds. So once their mate dies, they will find another one. We've also had some breakups when they're not successful at nesting, because it doesn't make much sense to keep with a mate that isn't helping you produce any young. So we have had some that'll separate after maybe 2 or 3 years of unsuccessful breeding. Ospreys, there shouldn't be a problem. The bald eagles and the osprey will partition the available habitat. And we do have some nice rock outcroppings for the osprey to nest on here, and Santa Cruz Island in particular has some nice areas along the north coast where osprey could breed. Do I specialize only in eagles? Right now, I primarily do eagle work. For graduate degrees, I worked with ruffed grouse in Illinois and Townsend's ground squirrels in Idaho. I've worked with spotted owls in Oregon, and on the islands I've worked with the island fox, the loggerhead shrike, kestrels, redtails, but probably the last decade it's been mostly the eagles. I have a PhD in zoology. I've got a bachelor's in ecology and ethology, which is animal behavior, a master's in zoology, and a PhD in zoology. So the people that I hire are required to have a bachelor's degree in a biological field. If you want to get up more into the stage that I'm in, then you probably do need a master's degree in some biological field at least. Eagles generally don't nest in the dead trees. They prefer the live ones. We've been having issues with pines dying on Santa Cruz Island, so I think that's what happened to their first tree. There's some, I don't know if it's a virus or insects, but large portions of the pine forest have been dying. Eagles tend to like to nest in the tops of trees, so maybe some of the dead trees that you've seen have a better location for a nest. Feelings, I doubt they have a lot of feelings. Most of their head is taken up with their eyes. Their brains really aren't that large or developed, I don't think. So I really doubt they have affection. We've had 5 eggs in the west end nest, but at that point we had 2 females laying eggs. I have heard of a couple nests with 4 eggs, but that's pretty rare. My greatest wish for fundraising: not to have to worry about it. Right now, I guess my biggest thing is trying to upgrade all our camera equipment to more of the network cameras that we have going now. It increases the clarity. We don't get the interference that we had for the last couple years, especially on the west end. So probably the camera equipment is my biggest concern right now, as well as paying for Pimu and Heidi's aviary upgrades. They will roll the eggs that are pipping, but they don't roll them so that the pip is up. I don't think it really matters to the chick too much which side is up, because the way they're positioned, they're just rotating around the egg until they're able to push out the top of the egg. Pimu we got back in 1999, I think. She was injured in Minnesota and was at the Raptor Center there. And we were looking for an educational eagle and knew somebody at the Raptor Center, so that's how we got her. Heidi we got from the vet school at the University of Washington. She was also injured, and we were using her up on Santa Cruz Island as a lure bird to try to trap the other golden eagles that were nesting up there and wiping out the island foxes. Thank you, Effie. And if you're having trouble getting your questions through, maybe you can PM them to a moderator. We only have there's a good shot of all 3 eggs. The egg hatches are pretty close to 35 days from when they were laid, so and 50% of the day is light and 50% is dark, so I think it's pretty random of when they're laid and when they hatch. Haven't had time to write many journal articles. We've got a couple that have come out in the California Island Symposium in the last few years, but I haven't had much of a chance to write. I'm doing this for sometimes 10, 12 hours or more a day. I just haven't had the chance to sit down and write. I need to go to my cabin for a few weeks, I think. What am I most curious about? Why they're hatching their eggs now when they weren't able to hatch them just 5 or 10 years ago. I don't know why there would be such a sudden change in the hatching success of the eggs. But without having eggs failing to analyze, we really can't answer that. And again, we're not getting the eggs, so the only contaminants we're really getting are in the 8-week-old chicks, and they're pretty low. But then again, they've only been eating the food for about 8 weeks, so I haven't had time to accumulate it. And no, I haven't even seen Avalon at the Ojai Raptor Center, and they don't. All I see is what gets shown up on Facebook. We stay safe by letting people know where we're going. Up on the northern islands, they carry a spot which they can send a message to let people know that they're okay, or if they need some help. Relatively good radio communication between people, and just being careful of where you're going. We do go on some steep, difficult areas, but for me, I carry a walking stick everywhere so that I don't fall as much. When did I first realize that I liked eagles? Probably, well, I worked up in Alaska for a couple summers, and I really liked watching them there, but I'd really never worked with them until I came here. We did set up the camera on the redding nest in Northern California. That's all I've really done with eagles outside of this area. Like I said earlier, I think I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was young, but as I got older, I knew I wanted to do something with wildlife and outdoors, and not for state or federal agencies, so it's pretty much the dream job. And we will announce banding dates beforehand so that you can watch the ones that are online. And we'll take video at the ones that aren't. And then we don't provide any food for the young fledglings that can't fish. They are primarily scavengers. They do get fed by their parents for a month or two, or in the case of Sassy, 3 or 4 months after they fledge. So there's really not much that we can or would do. And we've hatched the chicks in the office and weighed them, so we know they're about 90 grams when they're hatched. And we wouldn't breed Heidi. We don't want golden eagles on the islands, for one thing, and it's a whole different permitting process to get permission to breed birds. I really don't know where we would put golden eagles. We were studying the DDT and the food chain for the first 5 or 6 years of the Santa Cruz project and here, but I'm not aware of anything that's really going on now, especially since the eagles are breeding on their own. So it's been nice talking to you, and maybe we can do this again. If not, I will be on the chat from time to time. Feel free to ask questions when I'm there. So I'm going to sign off now, but keep an eye on the 2 Harbors and West End nests. We should have a chick in the next day or two there. Goodbye.